Well, every conference of the parties is important. You've got 180 countries in the room. You lurch forward a bit. You think you've got momentum. You've also got intense pressure on all governments from the shaky global economy and also sustained propaganda and political lobbying efforts by big oil, big coal, fossil fuel lobbies. So it's not an easy process. Durban rescued things a bit more and got them back on the rails. Doha has that chance once again. There's a lot of pressure to accelerate commitments. Industrialized, wealthy countries have to actually start setting targets and keeping them. The European Union has done spectacularly well and kept its targets. But for Canada and Japan, Canada being the worst because we've repudiated our targets, we need to have deeper targets and meet them. Canada's participation in Doha would only be significant if we did one of two things. If we stay on our current course, it would be better if we stayed home. If we were prepared to do something meaningful, we could play a real leadership role, and it's still worth fighting for that. I still am willing to fight for the idea that Stephen Harper will recognize that the current course is unsustainable and that it's time to rip up the letter leaving Kyoto.
If we're not there, doesn't that remove our disruption?
It would be better if we didn't go. Absolutely. But we're going to Doha, and we will go to every COP. We're still there because Canada has ratified the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. We're not leaving that. Canada remains in the room. Canada remains in the corridors. Canada continues to be a country that pushes other countries to do less. You know, our once good national reputation is in such disrepute. I mean, I went to Durban last year, and I got my accreditations as an advisor to the delegation from Papua New Guinea because I couldn't get on the Canadian delegation. So paid my own way, represented Papua New Guinea. And when people would meet me and they look at your delegate badge right away, say, oh, Papua New Guinea, and there'd be a big smile. And I'd say, well, actually, I'm a member of Parliament from Canada. It didn't take a second for the smile to disappear. The policies of sabotage practiced by the Canadian delegation under instructions from Stephen Harper since 2006 have taken our reputation as a country that is globally responsible, playing a constructive role in global search for solutions. I mean, all the things we used to be. But under Stephen Harper's instructions, we are intensely, consistently moving backwards. And I don't know that Canadians are aware how much now around the world showing up at a climate negotiation, you're better off to, never tell anybody that you're a Canadian. Try to pretend that you're anything else.
The point is, I guess, that the government constantly makes is that our contribution to global to greenhouse gases, like the Canadian contribution, is negligible in comparison to other countries, in particular industrializing countries like China and India, who are the biggest greenhouse gas emitters on the planet.
Here's the thing. Lloyd Axworthy used to say when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs that Canada punches above its weight. Right? So when we were doing the good guy things like landmines treaties and arguing for climate action, we punch above our weight. When we decide to sabotage global agreements, we punch above our weight. We've done far more damage to the global climate through obstructing negotiations, through twisting arms to try to keep India from taking on targets, to try to stop global progress, than we've ever done through the volume of our emissions. So it's less about, in these global contexts, the volume of our emissions, and much more about the way in which we've used our ability to influence global progress and diplomacy far above our own scale of our economy, our own, population. We've always been influential. And ever since 2006, when Stephen Harper changed the negotiating instructions, we have been acting to block progress. It's far worse to block progress from the countries that are bigger polluters than merely to say, look at our 2%. We are much more than 2% of a potential solution, and we've been way more than 2% of the problem. After all of the announcements in Canada that we were no longer a Kyoto party, that we plan to act as a Kyoto party in the room next week to weaken an agreement that countries in good faith are entering into for the future, is scandalous. So our own emissions is true, 2% of the global total emissions. But we have been, in my view, since 2006, we've been more than half the problem in the room because we keep obstructing progress.